The Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt was one of the richest and most powerful Greek kingdoms of the Hellenistic period. Its power came from its large population reserves, the fertility of the river Nile, its geographic position, which was easy to defend and granted Egypt access to important trade routes that connected the Mediterranean, Africa, and Asia, and finally, the main focus of this video, it had vast gold reserves in its territory. When the Ptolemies took control of the country, they brought their Greek tradition of making coins to Egypt, transforming it from a nation that traded metals simply as commodities into a fully monetized society. The abundance of gold in their kingdom led to the introduction of some of the largest and most spectacular gold coins of the ancient world. The Greeks weren't new to gold coins. When Ptolemy I became pharaoh of Egypt in 305 BC, the most common monetary standard used by the Hellenistic world consisted of a trimetallic system, with many states issuing gold staters as their highest denomination. These were worth 20 silver drachma, the main silver denomination. Gold, however, was rather rare in the Mediterranean. You would see plenty of drachma, silver drachma circulating, but gold was mostly used as a storage of value. Egypt, however, had very rich gold reserves in its eastern and southern regions, as well as easy access to the Nubians to the south, who also had access to vast reserves of the metal. This abundance of gold is easily seen on the sheer volume of artifacts from the pharaonic period, with every pharaoh being buried with vast quantities of gold. Their impressive funerary masks being the most famous examples. Imagine like these enormous masks made entirely of gold. And how surprisingly, gold artifacts are commonly found even on burial sites of people who did not belong to the aristocracy, meaning the metal wasn't that expensive to get a hold of. Silver, on the other hand, was nowhere to be found and was exclusively acquired from trade. While Mediterranean markets historically priced gold as being 10 to 20 times as valuable as silver, records from pharaonic Egypt show the gold to silver ratio being of 5 to 1, 3 to 1, and sometimes up to 1 to 1. Imagine that, silver being as valuable as gold. Some pharaohs, like Ptolemy I, who reigned between 1039 and 991 BC, chose to have their coffins made out of silver as a way to brag about their wealth. When enacting their plans of monetizing Egypt, the Ptolemies noticed this imbalance between gold and silver on their markets, so they decided to close the economy of Egypt, meaning no foreign coins could get in and no Egyptian coins could leave the country. The main trade routes that entered the kingdom had outposts, with royal money changers who exchanged the foreign money for Ptolemaic coinage. This was a way to prevent the scarce silver that entered the country from leaving, and the small surcharge the money changers charged when exchanging the coins was pocketed by the royal treasury, serving as a source of silver to the state. A series of adaptations to their monetary system was also put in effect to use as little silver as possible. Their main silver coin, the tetradrachm, was considerably lighter than that of other Greek kingdoms, weighing around 14.5 grams instead of the typical 17 grams. Other denominations, such as the drachma, the hemidrachma, or the obo, which in other countries would be small silver coins, were replaced by gigantic bronze coins with purely fiduciary value. Here we have a tetrobo, or 2/3 of a drachma. Such a denomination would typically be a silver coin of around 2.7 grams, so a small thing, but instead we have this massive chunk of bronze weighing 45 grams. And as we previously mentioned, due to the abundance of gold, new denominations made from this metal, unique to Egypt, were created. How about we start with the smallest of today's coins? This piece was struck under Ptolemy I, made in the capital mint of Alexandria between the years 294 and 282 BC. Ptolemy introduced a gold coin called a trikison, worth 60 drachma. What we have here is a fractional unit, 1/10 of a trichison, so a coin worth 6 drachma. As we can see, well, it is tiny, at a mere 1.7 grams in weight. On the obverse we have the bust of Ptolemy I, by far the most common design on all Egyptian precious metal coins. Really interesting, realistic bust of the monarch. While in the previous classical period, human figures were shown with idealized, wonderful facial features, here we have a realistic portrait of Ptolemy, with all of the flaws he had in reality, as he wasn't a particularly beautiful man, with his hooked nose, prominent forehead and chin, and wild, unkempt hair. On the reverse, the main symbol of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the eagle of Zeus, with its open wings perched on a thunderbolt. Quite a lot of details for such a tiny little coin. Around the legends, we read Ptolemaio Basileus, of King Ptolemy. Now, let's go to his son, Ptolemy II, considered to have been the best of all the Ptolemies, and famous for the building of the lighthouse and the Library of Alexandria. During his reign, Alexandria was considered one of the greatest cities from the Hellenistic world, being a major center of culture, attracting scholars from all of the Mediterranean, and one of the busiest commercial harbors. The most important gold denomination introduced by the Ptolemies was the menaion, a coin of nearly 1 ounce of pure gold and worth a whopping 100 drachma. Here we have a fractional piece of half a menaion, which was still a ridiculous amount of money for a single coin. This piece was struck between 272 and 270 BC. On the obverse we have the bust of Ptolemy II, wearing the royal headband, and by his side we have his sister, Arsinoe II, which in good pharaonic fashion was also his wife. The legends are squeezed right at the top of their bust, and it reads Adelphon, meaning from the siblings. A very interesting royal statement. Instead of merely stating the name of Ptolemy as the king of Egypt, it makes a reference to both brother and sister, as if the authority was shared between them. It most certainly wasn't the case. Arsinoe didn't hold any power. It was more likely an argument that the right to rule was held by the Ptolemaic lineage itself. The royal blood gave them the right to rule. On the reverse we have the images of Ptolemy I and Berenike, the father and mother of Ptolemy II. Over their heads, the inscription Theon, meaning of the gods, showing their deification, their ascension to godhood in the eyes of the Egyptian people. That's fascinating. This could have been a commemorative issue, celebrating the deification of the first Ptolemaic monarchs. Now we get to the main course, a full menaion, a whopping 100 drachma piece. This one is dated to 241 BC, so under the reign of Ptolemy III. And here we have a queen. This is Queen Berenike, but we have a little bit of a problem. Which Berenike is this? Turns out the Ptolemies were rather unimaginative when naming their monarchs. There were in total 15 different Ptolemies and 8 Berenikes. We might be looking at Berenike II, the wife of Ptolemy III, or Berenike Sira, his sister, who was offered in marriage to the Seleucid king, marking the end of hostilities between the two empires. The covert bust could indicate we are talking about a deceased person, which in this case could be interpreted as his sister. A rival Seleucid queen, Laodike, had Berenike executed in a plot to have her son become the new Seleucid king. This enraged Ptolemy III so much that he declared war once again in order to take revenge. This coin might then be a deification issue for his sister. On the reverse, we have this gorgeous cornucopia, the magical horn of abundance. At its top, we can see a bundle of grapes, a pomegranate, and other pieces of fruit spewing out of it in an endless torrent of food. It is richly decorated throughout the extension of the horn, and the royal headband worn by the kings is tied around it, symbolically tying the prosperity of the kingdom with the rule of the Ptolemaic kings. Around the design, we have the inscription, Berenike Basilissa, Queen Berenike. Just out of curiosity, so we know how much money we're talking about here. A hoplite, the frontline, heavy infantryman of the time, one of the best types of soldiers they could muster, was paid a respectable sum of 2 drachma per day during campaigning season. Meaning, with a single coin like this, we could pay 1 hoplite for 50 days of service. And let's wrap it up with another Naiaeon. This one was struck by Ptolemy IV between 219 and 217 BC, and it's yet another deification issue, celebrating his father, Ptolemy III, the one who issued the previous coin we just saw. This piece, like all the others we saw today, comes from the main royal mint of Alexandria. There's a lot going on in this obverse. We have the deified bust of Ptolemy III, and to really make sure everyone gets the message that he was now amongst the gods, he wears the regalia of 3 different gods. On his head, we can see the sun rays of the sun god Helios. Around his neck and on his chest, he wears the Aegis, a magic cloak owned by Zeus, which the god bestowed to those he considered worthy to wear it into battle, making them invincible. And he's carrying the trident of the sea god, Poseidon. It's really interesting to see how the Ptolemies adapted the Egyptian tradition of considering their pharaoh an actual living, walking god, and adapted it to the aesthetics of the Greek pantheon. This kind of over-the-top depiction of deceased deified kings is not seen anywhere else in the Greek sphere. I mean, to give the king the attribute of 3 different gods, which practically makes it a superior god with the attributes of 3 gods, that's incredible. On the reverse we have once again the cornucopia. However, for this type, it features at the top of the horn, once again the radiate halo, representing the sun god Helios. It also has the royal headband tied around it, although in this example the stripes of fabric are in a slightly different position. And on the legends, as now we have the reference of a king, we see Ptolemaio Basileus once more, of King Ptolemy. As the kingdom started declining, particularly during the reigns of Ptolemy V and VI and beyond, the number of gold coins made declined precipitously, as the king wasn't as able to mount mining expeditions into the dry and dangerous territories of eastern and southern Egypt to gather new gold, meaning sadly the wonderful gold coins of the Ptolemies are mostly restricted to the reign of its first kings. Which of the Ptolemaic kings is your favorite? And what's your favorite Egyptian coin? Let us know in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a like and consider subscribing if you did. Happy collecting, and I'll see you soon.